This is one of the many photographs that I shot for a lens brand who hired me to shoot with their new lens to broaden their collection of photographs that were shot with the new product. And in this video, I'm taking you with me on this job to show you how it went, what worked, what didn't work, and everything in between. Let's begin.
Oh, fuck. It's not love without the fever.
This story begins a couple weeks ago when a brand called Thypoch reached out to me asking whether I would like to work with the new 50mm f2 lens that they've been working on and are about to launch. They said they needed photographs that represent the lens, as in photos that were shot with it for some kind of brochure. Honestly, I didn't 100% understand what they wanted, but the important part that they want photos with this new lens I did comprehend. And that, to me, sounded really cool. I mean, what an honor that they'd like me to shoot with a lens so that they can use the photos for promotional purposes. And so I responded by saying just that, and that I would gladly take on this job. And so we came to an agreement, and it was time to begin with work. With projects like this one, I like to prepare my shoots beforehand and get an idea of the direction I'm going for. Some of this process I like to do in my sketchbook. I don't know why, but when simply brainstorming or idea dumping, I prefer to just write everything down by hand in a notebook. It seems to work better for this part of the process. Another important part in this stage of the project is finding the visual concept and aesthetic, for which I love to get some help and inspiration from Pinterest. You have to know, when I began working on this project, I was feeling a little bit lost actually, because I didn't really know in which direction to go. But why, you may wonder? Well, you know, I was a little confused as to what Thypoch actually wanted me to do. They seemed to have many ideas on how they want to represent their product, and I was having some difficulties understanding what they were going for. But for now, I thought I'll just wait for the lens to arrive and then we'll tackle that issue. Oh, there it is. Well, let's unbox the lens first and then think about the concept. So this little beauty is the Thypoch Eureka 50mm f2. This wonderful design is an homage to the classic collapsible design of the Taylor-Hobson 50mm lens from the 1950s, which itself was inspired by the first generation Leica Summicron. What they mean by collapsible is this. And that, I think, is pretty cool. This lens has a Leica M mount and is intended to be a cheaper alternative for the original Leica lenses. But I don't have a Leica. Well, lucky for me, Thypoch also loves the idea of adapting this lens to modern digital cameras such as my Sony, and so they sent it to me together with an adapter so that I could shoot with it on my Sony a7 III. By the way, when I say that this is a cheaper alternative to Leica lenses, that does not necessarily mean it feels cheaper than a Leica lens. Honestly, I've never held a Leica lens, so I can't exactly speak from my experience, but I don't imagine it to feel mind-bogglingly different to any other top quality lens. Anyway, the Eureka is heavy in a very good way. It feels so well built and is a joy to hold and screw onto the camera. And I don't think it's actually that heavy, it just feels heavier than what you'd expect when you see such a tiny lens. It is clearly intended to be a lens for a slower, intentional approach to photography. The lens cap is made of the same material as the lens and has this fancy screw that you twist to take off. Then you uncollapse the lens, twist it, and you're ready to shoot. At the front, you have your aperture ring, at the back you have your focusing ring. Even the focusing ring is unique, featuring this knob here which locks the focus to infinity when you turn it that far. Anyway, that's enough admiration for this lens looks and feel. Thank you so much to Thypoch for not only hiring me as a photographer but also sponsoring this video. Now it's time to see what the image looks like, and so let's return to my minor problem about not quite knowing yet what to shoot. I think my difficulties stemmed from the oddly specific desires that Thypoch expressed, saying that they want personal or intimate photographs that hold some emotion, and they specifically emphasized that they do not want any street photography. And so I had the idea to combine this job with an ongoing photography project that has already been in the works. It's now been a bit over half a year that I've moved to Innsbruck, and since coming here I've been intentionally growing a collection of photographs that document this chapter of my life, both directly at home and out in the city and around. I'm very drawn to the subject home in general in photography, home in all its meanings, so this includes our apartment but also the streets of our neighbourhood, the city centre, the nearby nature and the people of this place. And so you see, this project is one that in my opinion is quite personal to me, and hence I thought why not continue this series with some photographs that I shoot with the thypoch lens. Seeing as they explicitly told me to not shoot street photography, I decided to leave that part of the series out and instead concentrate on my room, the place where I spend most of my conscious time. I photographed a couple details of my room that felt like I hadn't documented enough yet. I've been collecting photographs of my room, however mostly wider shots of some great lighting and things like that. I decided to focus on my table with the plants and chose to photograph my lamp and some details of the plants, because those are things in my room that make it very comfortable for me personally, and I guess those are aspects of my room that also represent me and my preferences when it comes to bringing a room to life. One evening I also shot this photograph. At first glance it's nothing special, but with the context it actually means a lot to me. The photograph shows my notebook and the open page I just written onto moments before shooting this. It so happened that during this evening I had a rush of inspiration for a short film that I've been working on, and so I dumped all my thoughts onto this page, and then once the rush was over, I decided to capture this moment. I like this because it represents those moments when my thoughts suddenly align in a way that I get an inspirational rush of sorts, which for me are always special moments that I cherish. Lastly, I decided to shoot a few more photos of me in my room to complete the first set. The first set was supposed to be a little starter sort of, which I'd send to thypoch to get some feedback to further understand what they are looking for. And so, with the first few photographs collected, I sent it to them and eagerly waited for their reaction. I received a new email. I opened it and read, "Nah, these aren't really nice, not quite what we're looking for." I was devastated. Well, not really, they didn't actually write it like that, but it's how I read their much more kindly and indirectly written message. Basically, the way I understood their feedback is that these photographs concentrate a bit too much on the home and don't hold much emotion to outsiders. They'd also appreciate and encourage a more artistic approach to the photography, not as direct. And that is where it finally clicked for me. I'd been misunderstanding their goal all this time. Seeing as these photographs are supposed to show the capabilities of this lens, I thought these photos ought to be sharp, in focus and without grain so that the viewer can actually see how clean of an image this lens could render. However, now in hindsight, I totally get why they don't need that, because of course they can just produce that themselves. What they're actually looking for are artistic photographs that should brand the lens as a lens for artistic photography, which it clearly is, because no press photographer who needs speedy gear is going to pull up with this little shiny collapsible lens that requires 10 seconds just to set up. And so with this new understanding, I went back to the notebook and drew some ideas to sort my thoughts and find a new direction to go. I came up with a couple concepts for outside, but also had a few ideas which I could accomplish in my room. Before heading out and shooting a whole set just to hear back from them saying that they don't like the style, I decided to shoot a couple of the indoor ideas and just send that to them to see if I'm moving on in the right direction. This time they responded quite positively, and so I decided to pull through with the ideas I had for outside. Alright, first session, we're running. Okay, we're looking a bit better. Alright, I think I found my first spot. I think I want to set something up with this backdrop. I came to a place a bit outside of town that has a bunch of fields and some forest patches where I thought I might be able to find something that works for the concept I had in mind. I framed up a shot of the grass in front of me in a way that there is nothing else visible, so no horizon, which was possible without tilting the camera down thanks to the field's uphill slope. My plan was to place myself into the frame in some uncommon way that could create that point of interest in the frame. Alright, so for now I don't really have a choice than just trying it out, so let's see what happens. I tried various things from moving around, jumping, squatting and simply sitting in front of the camera. a bad start, actually. I ended up with a bunch of photographs, some more interesting than others. I think the jumping photos aren't too bad, but not as interesting as some of the squatting photos, which I like for the randomness and the minimalism by striking a pose that essentially compresses the size of my body to this tiny shape that only takes up a small portion of the frame. I also quite like this version of the photos of me sitting in front of the camera. For now, these are my favourites, however I might decide to send fewer than these to thypoch and only keep those that I consider the best. Okay, I have another idea, and this location actually works for just that. Next, I wanted to shoot one of the photos I already had in my sketches. I brought the camera down quite low to recreate a frame that only consists of the moody sky, to then stand in that frame myself to take a minimalistic self-portrait. Something that was a little annoying while shooting, but I still appreciated nevertheless, was the wind. Wind can make shooting a little difficult at times, and at a certain strength I just dislike wind because it's loud and I find it hard to breathe. However, the positive about wind is that it adds a lot of drama to photography, and so it can be quite beneficial on shoots. I was really enjoying how the wind messed with my hair, which in combination with the slow shutter would create quite dramatic looking self-portraits. I shot many photos again, with mixed results, some better, some worse, but one that stands out to me and that I think turned out really cool. The composition, the position, the hair and the wind, the movement, everything kind of works together well here, so I'm very pleased with this one. The idea for the set is to have some complementary photos which don't include me. They're more like, I don't know, details, I'd say, and I'm looking at the trees around me here. Maybe I might find some branches that work well for that. These are photographs which I think don't really work very well as standalone photos, but they add some extra depth to the set when combined with the previous photographs. That's kind of what I was looking for. This tree is so epic. Oh God. Some of these work, some don't. For now, I've selected these as the keepers, which I will consider sending to thypoch. I just got a stupid idea, and I think I like it enough that I have to do it, even though it is a bit stupid. That's gonna be cold, but hopefully worth it. Time to be sketchy again. All good, all good. So I had the wonderful, painless idea to shoot a photo of my bare feet in the snow, because I thought the unease could make for an interesting photograph. Okay, guess I'm gonna do this now. Oh, maybe should have started the camera. That's cold. Position is not good. Do it again. These aren't even good. Okay, one more round over there. Like, is this even in frame? Like, wow, my shoes never felt this warm. I'm not quite sure yet if that was actually worth it, because at first glance the photos don't really look that great. Not quite what I was envisioning in my head, but I guess we'll have to check in post-production. I decided to try a few things out as long as my feet can take it, and ended up with a bit of a mix of photos that didn't really work out in the way that I wanted them to, but luckily I got one shot that I think is pretty cool. It's simple yet effective, I find. It brings across the idea and captures the atmosphere I was going for. Oh. Please let me get that. Here, I was just trying to capture a couple additional photos for the set. I had the idea of capturing the silhouettes of birds already, but I hadn't found the chance to shoot yet, so this was it. I like the result. I think this is pretty cool. Let's see what we get now. Then, there were two more photos that I wanted to shoot. It was becoming increasingly dark now, and so the first one I wanted to do was a cold dark blue hour photo of me on the field, which worked out quite alright, I find. Nothing outstanding, but might be a neat addition to the series. Finally, I unpacked my light that I had been dragging around with me all the time to light up a scene on this patch of snow.
All your streets are empty lights begin to sway.
Alright, I'm not really sure about this one, but we'll have to look later. And I think it's time to call it a day. Don't have any more ideas for now, and I mainly just wanted to get this one concept with the light. It's my first time kind of shooting outside with a light like this, doing self-portraits, so I kind of wasn't sure how this is going to go. Yeah, I look forward to post-production. Here I ended up with a mix of results again, mostly not what I wanted, but at least I got one that was okay, nothing exceptional though. And with that shot, it was time to call it a day. At least for shoot number 1. Yep, this was only the first of 2 shoots. The next day, I already headed out again because by coincidence the conditions happened to be exactly what I was looking for, namely low-hanging clouds. My plan was to hike up the mountain here just a bit to get into the clouds and enjoy some fog to shoot in. While I was aiming to shoot a couple self-portraits again, I also casually shot a couple photos on the way, which again should complement the series. After some walking, I found an open space that piqued my interest because I thought I could maybe frame up a cool wide shot looking down this slope. These are the results, of which I think this is my favourite. I like the landscape and how there's a lot of depth in the photo thanks to the branches in the foreground and the fog that signals the distance of the trees and those that follow further behind.
Easy rider on the highway.
Here, I decided to get a couple more of those in between shots.
Station wagon going slow. Windows open, you are basking.
I think these 3 are my favourites. I especially enjoy this one that focuses on the tree. I think it really brings forth the details and characteristics of this tree and invites me as a viewer to take a closer look. I think this is in part at least made possible by the overall aesthetic of the image, which is greatly enhanced thanks to the fog.
I keep this folded at the corner so that I could not forget. Folded at the corner so that I could not forget. Pink azaleas by your drive.
Here I made it to another interesting spot where I was standing in a patch of rocks that looked a bit like a river path but without the water. I shot a lot here, mainly because I tried various things which all didn't feel quite right, and so I kept trying. And this one I think isn't too bad. In the end, I think that these two are the photos that work for me and that I'd send to thypoch. I like the dynamic posing here and how my position works together with the background that gradually fades to grey.
You waving silver I keep this folded at the corner so that I could not forget. Folded at the corner so that I could not forget.
In this one, I tried to stay to the left of the frame to balance out the trees and my body in the composition. That worked out pretty well in this one. However, what makes this particular photograph stand out to me in comparison to the other attempts is the exact moment of the movements that the camera captured. The mix of blur and that little bit of sharpness on my ear is a cool combination of sharpness and blur, I find.
Alright, so you can't really see because we're in the forest at the moment, but basically the clouds have gone higher up, and I think until we get to the clouds we're gonna have to walk quite a bit, so I'm afraid this is probably the end of today's shoot.
And that it was, indeed. However, after coming back, editing and sorting the photographs, I think I've shot enough to make a decent set that I'm happy to send to thypoch for their review. And so I prepared a small PDF preview file for them to scroll through, because I think that's a nice way to present the work I made for them. It only took a day for them to get back to me, and luckily they responded positively and are satisfied with my work, and so I suppose that means mission accomplished. I'm excited to see how they make use of my photography. Thank you so much to thypoch for giving me this opportunity and working with me. It was an honor and a pleasure. They've already told me that they're working on more lenses and would consider future collaboration, and so if they do, would you be interested in another video of this type in which I take you with me? If so, let me know and I will let thypoch know. Anyway, before saying goodbye, I would like to give a warm thank you to the lovely people supporting me on Patreon. Thank you to each one of you. If you're interested in Lightroom presets, tutorials, or postcards, you can check out my page via the link in the description. Also, I have a print shop, by the way, in case that is of interest to you. Also, link in the description. With that said, I hope to see you again soon. Until then, goodbye.